crisis in Puerto Rico presented Donald Trump with the opportunity to step up and embody one of the most significant roles of a president during a time of national crisis, the role of comforter-in-chief. During times of tragedy, whether natural or man-made, Americans have looked to their presidents for hope and reassurance. And how presidents respond, for better or worse, can wind up defining their legacies. Ronald Reagan rose to the occasion after the Challenger disaster in 1986. George W. Bush was praised for his bullhorn address to first responders after 9/11, though he was later condemned for his flyover after Hurricane Katrina. President Obama offered hugs and reassurance to the people of Joplin, Missouri, after a deadly tornado there in 2011. And then we have Donald Trump, the president who responded to a desperate plea for help in Puerto Rico with mean tweets. Joining me now is Michelle Bernard, president of the Bernard Center for Women, Politics, and Public Policy, Karine Jean-Pierre, senior advisor for MoveOn.org, media and political analyst Steve Adubato, and Republican strategist Evan Siegfried. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to start with the ladies here at the table, and I'll go to you first, Karine, on this. Quinnipiac has a new poll out that has some pretty dire numbers for Donald Trump and the way he is performing his presidency thus far. And it was taken, you know, a lot of it is during this Hurricane Maria period. 56% say that he's not fit to be president. That's not different than when he was running. On those who say they are embarrassed to have him as president, 51%, a majority, say they're embarrassed to have him as president. 57% disapprove of the overall job he's doing, and 57% disapprove of the overall job that he's doing. So these are not good marks. They're not, you know, they're not good marks. Right. Do you think that Donald Trump changes any of these numbers by the way that he's performing vis-a-vis Hurricane Maria, or is this just the way it's going to be for 4 years? This is just him.
It's definitely just him. It's who he is. I mean, just when you think the president hits rock bottom, he finds a way to take it even lower. And I think when you look at Puerto Rico, it really brings out the worst toxic brew of Donald Trump, which is the racism, which is incompetence, and also just the egomaniac that he is. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, we are talking about 3.4 million people who are really trying to survive and fighting for their life. They have no medicine. The food is running out. There's no water, no electricity. And this is what he does from a luxury resort, right? Yeah. And talking to the polls as well. Like, he's making money hand over fist. Yeah. What he's doing every time he's golfing at his resort. And he has no shame about it. But yet, he's okay with attacking the mayor from the 18th green. That's what he does.
And Michelle, you know, it's interesting that it just so happens that the attacks on the mayor of San Juan, a woman of color, happened to come a year to the day after Donald Trump went on a tweet storm attacking Alicia Machado, also a Latina who was the former Miss Universe. He does seem to have a reflex when it comes to women of color.
He has, with all women, but particularly with women of color. I mean, the way that he has attacked her is just absolutely, like, revolting. You know, I was speaking with a tenured professor from Howard University last night who's a psychologist to just try to get a grasp on what it is we're dealing with Donald Trump. He's not her patient. She's never spoken to him. Sure. But she watches the news like everyone else, and she's explaining to me the level of narcissism that we see in this man, and the fact that the country has to deal with it. And it's that narcissism that led him to attack the mayor of San Juan. And I don't know if you've seen, but there are photos all online at, you know, with pictures of them at the exact same time. Yeah. He is hitting the ball on the greens, and she is up to the waist in water, saving lives in Puerto Rico. Yeah. And then you have to question yourself, is it because she's a woman? Is it because people speak Spanish there? Is it because he maybe was not sure that these are actually Americans and that Puerto Rico is, you know, a territory of the United States government? I mean, whatever it is absolutely repulsive. This makes the response to Hurricane Katrina look it makes like Katrina look good. Yeah. Like it was just sweet people trying to do their best and couldn't do it. This looks intentional.
Yeah, and I think with Katrina, the idea was sort of indifference or incompetence here, where it seems to be, you know, malice.
Yes, that's pure malice.
Steve, you know, you write about leadership. This is what your book is about. This is a lot of what you talk about. And Donald Trump is, of course, the president of the United States, and so it's sort of the person who's in this position of supposed to, you know, sort of unify the country in moments like this. But this was his Treasury Secretary explaining why, instead of doing that, he attacked the mayor of San Juan. This was his Treasury Secretary trying to explain that to us on Meet the Press.
You mentioned the governor, but you're not mentioning the mayor. Why did he attack the mayor? She's in a situation, a pretty desperate situation, and seemed to lack a little bit of empathy for the situation at the time. Why did he do this?
Well, I think, as you know, when the president gets attacked, he attacks back. And I think the mayor's comments were unfair given what the federal government has done.
Steve, is that a good enough explanation when you're talking about the president of the United States?
Joy, I'm trying to control the emotions, the feelings I have right now. Screw politics. This is not about politics. It's not about Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, or liberals. I happen to be a Roman Catholic. Doesn't matter what religion you are, whether you believe in religion. The human side of this, the human pain and suffering that we all see in Puerto Rico, 3.4 million people suffering. The fact that the President of the United States chose to attack Mayor Cruz of San Juan, forget about where she's coming from politically. He attacks her and says she's been pushed by Democrats to say nasty things about Trump. The insanity of that, while people are suffering, to make this about himself, has been said by other people before. The golf thing speaks for itself. He talked about optics of firing, one of his cabinet members for optics because of private planes. Look at those optics right now. Look at those pictures. I say to every Trump supporter around this country, I don't care if you think that we're the progressive, liberal, Trump-bashing media. Ask yourself what those optics tell you. Ask yourself if those pictures tell you that we have a president that gives a damn about people who are suffering. Forget about who praises him and who criticizes him. Rise above it. And so for his secretary to say when he gets attacked, he attacks back, I wasn't a big fan of Barack Obama in a lot of situations. When he got attacked, he rose above it. When he got attacked, he found the good in people and tried to bring them together. This is a president who gets A+ for divisiveness and a big F for bringing this nation together. And in my book, leadership is about bringing people together in the worst of times.
And yet, Evan, for some people, there's sort of a method to the madness, right? Lin-Manuel Miranda's father, Luis Miranda, a former longtime public official in New York, and of course they both are Puerto Rican and very proud, wrote a piece in the New York Daily News in which he said to Donald Trump, speaking to him, we all know what the president is really doing, throwing red meat to the only supporters he has left, who feast upon his insults about minorities. The Republican Party, members of it, they're very few that have said much in response to what Donald Trump has done. Is it because they too are enthralled to that same base who they know this is going to be popular with?
Yes, they are a little bit scared of blowback from the base. But let's look at what's going on here. What is happening in Puerto Rico and with the president's disgusting tweet attacking the mayor of San Juan yesterday, it's a symptom of a larger overall problem. The president is isolated, impotent, and has an overblown sense of grievance. And this is extending to everything. He feels he needs to be getting credit for things he shouldn't be getting credit for because he has very few accomplishments. He's becoming isolated in that congressional Republicans largely ignore him and just don't even talk about him or honor his requests from the White House. He has no real legislative track record. He has only executive orders to show for what he's done as a president, and he's got a further divided nation. At the same time, when we look at what he was saying yesterday, it sounds like a Valley girl. Oh my God, they're ingrates. I mean, why don't they appreciate me? They're just this conspiracy. We have a high school girl as president of the United States, essentially, who's trying to make it all about him and his ego, as opposed to the fact that 55% of the people in Puerto Rico don't have drinkable water. 90% don't have cell service, and only 5% have electric power. The White House did drop the ball in the second week on Puerto Rico, and the optics are very bad, and deservedly so. But it's now all about how people don't appreciate the very great things that are going on there.
But I just wanted to add, because I think the word he used, impotence, I think is really important here, and it's key. I mean, if you think about the optics, the mayor, there was no direct attack on Donald Trump.
Right. Yeah.
And the woman humbles herself and goes on worldwide television and is begging for help to save lives, and the best that he could come back with was an attack and statements that they want us to do everything for them. It's not a direct attack. They're saying 10,000 troops is not enough. Right. People need water. People need food. People need to be evacuated. Please help us. And so you have to question yourself, are we really looking at what happens when a man like Donald Trump feels impotent and this is the best he can give the country?
Steve.
The country deserves more.
Yeah, Steve, quickly.
Joy, real quick. Sunday morning, people across this country, many of them go to church, they worship. They don't, but they have a sense that it's Sunday. For all those Trump supporters, when he spoke to the evangelicals and tried to quote the Bible terribly, ask yourself what Jesus would have done. Ask yourself what any decent person would do. That is not what the president is doing. People need to check themselves and ask themselves why they're defending this president at this time with so many people suffering and just asking, begging for help. This is not political, it's humanitarian.
Or in the case of a lot of members of the Republican Party in Washington, just being quiet and silent about it.
Exactly.
Michelle and Karine will be back. Thank you guys very much. We'll be back in a little bit. Steve Adubato and Evan Siegfried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Joy.
All right, and coming up in our next hour, if it's any given Sunday, and AM Joy is talking football. I guess I should have read that first. But first, on Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update, Michael Che had some choice words about Donald Trump's attack on the mayor of San Juan.
Was she nasty to you? How nasty? Are you shaking? You want to go smoke a Virginia Slim until your hand stops moving? This isn't that complicated, man. It's hurricane relief. These people need help. You just did this for white people twice. Do the same thing. Go tell Melania to put on her flood heels, get some bottled water, some food.
Up in the way he is performing his presidency thus far, and it was taken, you know, a lot of it is during this Hurricane Maria period. 56% say that he's not fit to be president. That's not different than when he was running. On those who say they are embarrassed to have him as president, 51%, a majority, say they're embarrassed to have him as president. Presidents for hope and reassurance, and how presidents respond, for better or worse, can wind up defining their legacies. Ronald Reagan rose to the occasion after the Challenger disaster in 1986. George W. Bush was praised for his bullhorn address to first responders after 9/11, though he was later condemned for his flyover after her. The crisis in Puerto Rico presented Donald Trump with the opportunity to step up and embody one of the most significant roles of a president during a time of national crisis, the role of comforter-in-chief. During times of tragedy, whether natural or man-made, Americans have looked to their Hurricane Katrina. President Obama offered hugs and reassurance to the people of Joplin, Missouri, after a deadly tornado there in 2011. And then we have Donald Trump, the president who responded to a desperate plea for help in Puerto Rico with mean tweets. Joining me now is Michelle Bernard, president of the Bernard Center for Women, Politics, and Public Policy, Karine Jean-Pierre, senior advisor for MoveOn.org, media and political analyst Steve Adubato, and Republican strategist Evan Siegfried. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to start with the ladies here at the table, and I'll go to you first, Karine, on this. Quinnipiac has a new poll out that has some pretty dire numbers for Donald Trump.